In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace this water pump bypass tube in this Dodge Ram. Let's get into it. Underneath the vehicle, we're going to drain the coolant. This is right next to the radiator. You can see where there's a drain. Make sure you have a drain bucket underneath. And just loosen this wing nut up. And we'll let that drain out. If you wish to, you can put a hose on the end of it. Then you can control where it's going to drain into. Once the coolant's done draining, then you can close this. Make sure it's snug. It's good. We're going to remove the coolant reservoir from the fan shroud. Just take this push pin out. Use a trim tool. Just pop that out. Slide that out. You can grab the reservoir, and there's a coolant hose right here. Should come off pretty easily like that. Just hold it up so you don't drain any coolant. We're going to disconnect the connectors on the reservoir for the washer fluid. Just push down on the tab right here. Disconnect that. For the other connector, I'm just going to use some long needle nose pliers, and I can squeeze the connector and pull it up. There we go, disconnect that. There's a hose right here. I'm going to disconnect that hose. If you have any washer fluid in here, you're going to want to put a drain bucket underneath because washer fluid is going to come out. Now we're going to take the fan clutch removal tool, line that up, and we'll loosen up the fan. Just give it a couple taps. That loosens up. Now carefully loosen the fan. You want to make sure it doesn't fall. You don't want it to fall into the radiator. And it slides right out. You want to loosen up the hose clamp. Use an 8mm socket. And slide that down. Then grab the upper radiator hose, slide it off. We'll just tie that out of the way. Just move it past the AC hose. Using a 13mm socket, we're going to take the two upper fan shroud bolts off. This one and one on the other side. Take those bolts out. And this side. And slide that out. Now just grab the fan shroud and just slide it up. And it pulls right out. We're going to take the Serpentine belt off. You can use a belt tensioner tool, or if you just have a 3/8 ratchet, right in here. And then we're going to loosen up the tension on the tensioner. You just want to rotate it to the right, and take the belt off the idler, pulley, and the alternator, compressor. Once that's off, you can loosen up the tension and take the belt the rest of the way off the water pump, the crank, and the power steering pump. I'm going to use a 15mm socket, take the tensioner off, loosen up this bolt. Take the tensioner out. Down below, we're going to take this hose clamp and move it down. Use some hose clamp pliers. And slide that down. And grab the tube. You can try to break it free by twisting it. It's a good idea to have a drain bucket underneath in case some coolant comes out. You can just use a pick, just get underneath there to break the seal. There you go. Twist that off. A little bit of coolant. Now we're going to take this lower idler pulley off. Use a 13mm socket. Slide that off. Now we're going to take this bolt off right here. Use a 13mm socket. Pull that out. Now we're going to take this bolt out. Use an 8mm socket. Slide that out. We're going to take this plate off. You can use a 13mm socket, take these two nuts off. There's a bolt right here, and some may have a bolt right there. This vehicle does not. So I'll take those off. Just going to loosen these first. And slide that bracket off. Now because of the way the pipe is shaped and you have this bracket right here, you're not going to have a lot of room with this pulley. So you got to get creative. You can try to break off this bracket and see if that works for you. What we're going to do is just take a cutting wheel and just slice right here, just so we can bend this out of the way, and then we'll be able to pull this out the rest of the way. Just be careful not to cut the pulleys. There we go. Pop that off. That's out. And just grab the rest of the pipe. And wiggle it up. Just going to clean this up with a wire brush. Now take the new pipe, just put a little silicone paste on the O-ring, just so it doesn't roll. Now slide this in position. If you're struggling to get the pipe in right here between the gap, in between where the bolt is going to go and where the pulley is, you can just take a file and just take the edge off. You might just trim it just a little bit, and because you're not going to get to where the threads are, you're not going to compromise any of the metal, but that might help you get the new tube in a little bit. Take the tube, line it up, and just gently push it in. Again, you don't want to ruin the pulley. There we go. Slide that in place. Now put that bolt in, get that started. And the lower bolt. Tighten that down, make sure it's snug. Tighten the lower one down. And snug it up. Put the bracket on, line that up. Put the 2 bolts in. There should be another bolt there. And the 2 nuts on. Tighten those down. And snug those down. Now slide the lower hose on and the hose clamp. And that's good. Put the idler pulley on. Get that started. Tighten it down. And snug it. And the belt tensioner, line that up. Snug that down. Now take the serpentine belt. We're going to go around the crank pulley first. And then on the back side of the water pump. All right, there we go. Around the back of the water pump and around the power steering pump. Up around the AC compressor and down near the idler pulley right here, over the alternator. It's going to be down near this idler pulley as well. Get it as close as possible first. Just like that. And then I'm just going to hold the belt and we're going to slip it onto the alternator. Just take your belt tool or your 3/8 drive. Take the tension off the tensioner and slide it over the alternator pulley. And double check all your pulleys. Make sure they look good. Yep, those look good. Slide the fan shroud in place. Just line it up. There's clips in the bottom. Get those clips to line up. In the bottom of the radiator. And push it down. And take a bolt here. Get that started. And then there's a bolt on the other side. And we'll tighten those down. Put the upper radiator hose back on the radiator and move the hose clamp. And we'll tighten that down. And just snug it down. That's good. Take the connectors for the washer, fluid reservoir, level sensor, and the pump. Connect those and lock them down. Take the hose, line that up on the pump, and push that on. Now take the radiator fan, and I'll slide this in. Line it up. Just get it started, get the fan clutch started. And I'm going to take an adjustable wrench. Just take a hammer and just snug it up. You can use the fan remover to install it, but you really don't want to tighten it too much, so be careful with that. Now line the coolant reservoir up. Take the push pin, slide that in place, lock it down. And the hose, get the hose lined up. You can take the radiator cap off. Make sure the valve down below is closed, and then you can top off all your coolant. Run the engine for about 10 minutes, monitoring the level and checking the temperature. After it's been about 10 minutes, you can shut the vehicle off, let it cool down, adjust the level accordingly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.